What if the most advanced war in history had already begun? Without a declaration, without warning, and without anyone truly understanding it? What if your idea of safety is just an illusion, and tonight that illusion gets shattered? Stay until the end. What if the most devastating military operation of 2025 didn't begin with a missile, but with a whisper? At precisely 17:23 on June 5th, a message just 3 words long appeared on the encrypted screen of an Israeli F-16I pilot. Time to go. No alarms, no fanfare, no shouting. Just a quiet signal, cold, clinical, and lethal. Within moments, 4 F-16I Sufa fighters would leave the runway of Ramat David, carrying a total of 8 2,000-pound guided bombs, their targets hidden among the tightly packed concrete veins of Beirut's southern suburbs. Welcome to TD News, where global events meet sharp perspective. You are about to witness not just an airstrike, but the opening move of a psychological chess match. And the board? A city on the brink, the night before one of Islam's holiest celebrations. Tonight's mission wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about deterrence. It was about control, precision, message. Each F-16I was loaded with Spice 2000G bombs, robotic weapons capable of threading through a single window from 60 kilometers away. But tonight, those pilots weren't launching from afar. They were going in close, into the shadows, into a city teetering between faith and fear. But before the first bomb could fall, something unusual happened. Exactly 60 minutes before impact, Israel began posting public warnings, not through encrypted channels, but on Twitter and Telegram. Satellite photos with red circles, civilian buildings marked for destruction. What appeared at first to be a humanitarian gesture was in fact something far more cunning, a way to force evacuation, track behavior, and harvest real-time intelligence. Which buildings empty first? Which remain suspiciously calm? Which load vehicles in a panic? Every movement became data. Every reaction became a weapon. This is not just war. This is warfare rewritten. If this is just the first 5 minutes, what secrets lie at the end? Subscribe to TD News so we can keep bringing you the truth behind the shadows. Your support is what fuels this mission. Now a question for you, something to ponder. If a modern airstrike can be legally justified while still devastating entire neighborhoods, is it A, a triumph of precision warfare, B, a failure of international morality? Tell us what you think. Comment below with A or B. We're listening. High above the golden haze of southern Lebanon, 4 F-16I Sufa jets cut through the sky with silent precision. From a distance, they looked like mere shadows against the setting sun. But beneath each wing hung a force far more intelligent and far more lethal than conventional warfare had ever seen. This wasn't just payload. This was autonomy. This was intent. This was the Spice 2000G. Each of these 2,000-pound bombs carried not only explosive power, but also 3 fully integrated guidance systems: GPS, an inertial navigation system, INS, using ring laser gyroscopes, and electro-optical scene matching technology. The INS alone could track position with stunning accuracy, even if every GPS satellite in orbit went dark. But that was only the beginning. Before takeoff, Israeli operators uploaded high-resolution satellite imagery of every intended target, down to the last rooftop, alley, and chimney. As the bomb fell, a forward-facing camera captured real-time footage at 60 frames per second, constantly comparing it with its internal memory. It didn't need a radio operator. It didn't ask for permission. It made decisions. When confidence in a match reached 98%, it adjusted its fins and committed. This wasn't just a bomb falling from the sky. It was a machine that could see. A machine that could correct for wind shear, thermal updraft, or false GPS signals. When Lebanese forces activated electronic jamming systems, likely Russian supplied, the Spice didn't falter. It disregarded corrupted satellite data and trusted only what it saw and what physics confirmed. From the ground, the chaos looked human. Cars fleeing, buildings darkening, panic spreading. But from 28,000 feet, what was unfolding was clinical, cold, calculated. When the lead pilot released his first bomb, the aircraft jerked upward, 2,000 pounds lighter. But he didn't watch it fall. He was already banking toward his second target. Below him, the bomb extended its wings, corrected its trajectory, and hunted. And as it descended through the final 1,000 feet, zooming in on pre-programmed landmarks, a vent on the roof, the angle of a parking lot, the glow of machinery beneath concrete, there was no hesitation. Only one truth remained. This weapon didn't miss. And if it saw you, it was already too late. They never saw it coming, not because it was invisible, but because what they saw wasn't real. At 28,000 feet above Beirut, the Israeli F-16I formation wasn't just flying. It was performing a digital illusion. This wasn't stealth in the traditional sense. It was the art of deception, performed not with cloaks, but with code. Hanging beneath each jet's fuselage was the Sky Shield electronic warfare pod, a device so precise it didn't merely jam enemy radar, it told them convincing lies. The process was clinical. When Lebanese radar systems, some Soviet-era, others Chinese, sent out pulses to scan the Sky Shield DRFM units captured those signals, mimicked them, modified them, and sent them back. But not just once. They sent multiple echoes, each tweaked to show a different position, altitude, or velocity. One signal said the aircraft was cruising north at 15,000 feet. Another showed it diving fast over the coast. A third had it holding steady over the Bekaa Valley. To the radar operators on the ground, the screen lit up like a battlefield of ghosts. Real targets hid in plain sight among dozens of illusions. They scrambled to track patterns that shifted with every scan. No logic, no rhythm, just noise. But the chaos wasn't random. It was orchestrated. One F-16I was designated as the lighthouse, flooding key radar frequencies with overpowering noise, while the others went firefly, blinking in and out with precise bursts of deceptive returns. It looked like an entire squadron, maybe two. Every sweep of the radar showed something different, something untrackable, something terrifying. Even Beirut's civilian air traffic controllers were caught in the confusion. Their screens became abstract art, commercial aircraft rising as scheduled, while phantom military returns danced across the scope at impossible speeds. Lebanese surface-to-air batteries attempted locks. Sky Shield broke them. Radar warning receivers inside the jets chirped, adjusted, recalibrated. The threat was there, but it was always a step behind. This wasn't just electronic warfare. It was dominance over perception itself. The moment you cannot tell what's real is the moment you've already lost. As the smoke from the first wave still curled above the Beirut skyline, a second shadow approached the theater of war. Not sleek F-16s, but two towering F-15I ROM strike aircraft. They didn't come for precision, they came for annihilation. Beneath each jet, slung tight to reinforced hardpoints, were two of the most feared weapons in modern deep strike warfare, the GBU-28 bunker busters, 5,000 pounds each. Not bombs, but ballistic verdicts. While the F-16s danced in urban airspace, these twin-engine warhorses soared at 35,000 feet, straight and steady. Velocity and altitude weren't by choice, they were physics. To pierce what lay beneath the earth, you had to fall like a meteor. And that's what the GBU-28s were designed for, to descend with such kinetic rage that even reinforced concrete could do nothing but crack. The target wasn't on any map. No lights, no fences, no surface signatures. Just a slight bulge on satellite imagery near Ain Ka. But intelligence had been watching. Months of dump trucks, irregular power lines, strange ventilation shafts in fields where nothing should breathe. Israel didn't need to guess. It knew. A command bunker, a drone manufacturing line, perhaps the nerve center for Hezbollah's southern operations. At 1844, the lead F-15 released its weapons. 10,000 pounds of steel and explosive detached in perfect silence, invisible to the world below. There was no scream, no siren, just acceleration. As the bombs fell, they rotated, stabilized, and waited. Laser guidance was withheld until the final seconds, when the APG-70 radar and Lantern pod painted the hillside in coded light. Then came impact. At 312 meters per second, the first penetrator slammed into the earth, boring through 27 meters of rock and steel. The second followed seconds later, aimed at a separate cavity. Both delayed their fuses, waiting just long enough to ensure they were deep inside before unleashing 630 kilograms of fury. The explosions weren't just powerful, they were contained, forced inward by concrete, multiplying pressure and setting off secondary detonations from munitions stored below. At 1845, the ground didn't just shake, it gave way. A crater 60 meters wide marked the site. What had once been a hidden fortress was now geological memory. The sky remained silent, but the message had already landed. By 1845, the mission was no longer in progress. It was complete. Southern Beirut, once cloaked in the hum of city life, now stood in stunned silence. In 4 locations, the earth had opened. Smoke climbed slowly into the evening air, curling like forgotten prayers. The skyline hadn't just changed, it had been rewritten. The final strike outside Ain Ka marked the end of the operation, but not the end of its message. There were no press releases, no triumphant speeches. The Israeli pilots didn't stay to admire the destruction. They were already low over the Mediterranean, riding the edge of radar shadow, guided home by encrypted frequencies and silence. But what lingered behind wasn't just wreckage, it was certainty. Certainty that nowhere was too deep, too hidden, or too sacred to be untouchable. The message wasn't aimed at buildings, it was aimed at decision makers, commanders, those who believed concrete and darkness could shield ambition. What they had built in secret had been seen, tracked, and erased with mechanical precision and surgical indifference. This was not just a tactical victory. It was a demonstration of doctrine. Israel had shown that it could combine real-time intelligence, psychological pressure, AI-guided munitions, and electronic warfare into a unified moment of power. Quiet, exact, and absolute. But perhaps the most chilling part was this. Every phase had been documented. The warnings issued, the satellite data stored, the strike patterns logged. Not only was this a military operation, it was a legal one, built for scrutiny, designed for the tribunal, calibrated for both impact and deniability. And yet, for all the precision, all the mathematics, the air above Beirut still tasted like smoke and fear. Because behind every algorithm was a question. If a war can be fought with no warning, no error, and no visible face, has it already moved beyond human control? The buildings will be rebuilt, the tunnels may return, but something deeper has shifted. A threshold has been crossed. Not of geography, but of belief. Because when war becomes a silent machine that always sees you first, then leaves without being touched, what kind of world are we left standing in? And more importantly, who still feels safe? What we just witnessed was not merely a military operation. It was a glimpse into the future of power. A war without borders, without warning, and perhaps most unsettling of all, without human hesitation. The 5/6/2025 airstrike by Israel wasn't just about destroying targets. It was about reshaping the entire psychological landscape of modern conflict. In an era where technology doesn't just assist soldiers but replaces them, we are entering a battlefield where speed, data, and precision rule over mass and might. The F-16s and F-15s didn't act alone. They worked as part of a digital ecosystem, synchronizing satellite intelligence, artificial intelligence, real-time surveillance, and electronic warfare in a choreography that was frighteningly flawless. But beneath the steel, algorithms, and shockwaves lies a deeper truth. Those who control perception now control reality. The enemy's radars didn't just lose the battle, they lost their understanding of what was even real. And this, perhaps, is the greatest shift of our age, not in weapons, but in certainty. So what does this mean for us, not as spectators, but as individuals navigating an increasingly complex world? It means that clarity of thought is our only true armor. In a world flooded with conflicting information, false images, and noise disguised as truth, we must sharpen our ability to observe, to question, and to decide. Whether you're leading a business, raising a family, or simply trying to live with integrity, you must know how to see through the fog. Not every battle is military, but every day, you are making choices under pressure based on what you perceive. The lesson is this: the greatest threat is not the missile you see, it's the one you don't. And the greatest power is not in striking first, but in knowing first. Learn to read beyond appearances, understand systems, stay calm under stress. Because the modern battlefield is no longer out there, it's here, in our attention, in our minds. Here's a simple question for you to reflect on. If you could choose one of the following traits to master in today's world, which would you pick? A, the ability to think clearly under pressure. B, the ability to influence others' perception. Let us know your answer in the comments. Just type A or B and share your perspective. There's no wrong answer, only insight. And if you found this story thought-provoking, don't forget to subscribe to TD News. Your support gives us the motivation to keep bringing you the stories that matter, the ones that hide behind the headlines.